Hello everyone. This is a recording for chapter 3. In chapter 3, we are going to talk about CSS styling, which is basically how we can assign colors, uh, borders, and other attributes that are related to the visual aspect of our elements, basically in HTML. So, as we mentioned before, there are let's say, three parts to our page. The first part here, which is the HTML itself, okay, the HTML tags, and this is, by the way, from our previous project. So this is the skeleton of the page, right? Here we can actually define just pure content in the form of headers, for example, header 1, paragraphs, okay, paragraph, and let's say order this. Basically, the things that are actually related to uh, the content of the page. Okay, so this is the first part that we studied in chapter 2. But what if I want to make my web page stand out a little bit? So far, if we examine this web page, call it chapter 3, we'll see that it is, pretty plain, which is okay if your main focus is the content only. But if you want to make it stand out a little bit, maybe you have to actually start applying other attributes to your elements. So again, the web page components. This is the skeleton, okay, which are basically the HTML tags. Then we have the let's say the clothing of the page, which is the CSS, the cascade style sheet. So just let me use a style quickly here. I'll create a style tag, and the easiest one is color, and I'll pick blue. Okay, I'll go through what I did just now uh, very soon, but let me just show you what do I mean by styling. So this is, again, I applied something new to my page, which is a color style. So instead of the boring black and white, now we have something a little bit different. So this is basically one use case of CSS. So again, it is a way for us to separate content from presentation. So when I focus on content here, I make it easy for me as a developer to know the structure of the page, regardless of the styling that needs to be applied. In essence, if I run this page on any browser, it should be rendered the same, right? Um, so if you define content only in your HTML page, this way your HTML page is more focused on content, and it will not include any, let's say, distractions. It will be standardized, if that makes sense. So a standardized web page, okay? So how can I apply CSS in a way that will basically conserve this purity of HTML? One way of doing it is by using something called import tags, okay? And this is, of course, yani, I'm not actually going in order here with the slides. I just want to show you what do we mean by separating content from presentation, this part, okay? Because it's not obvious if I go through the slides in chronological order, it will not make sense that much, okay? So what we're talking about is one way of adding styling to our page that will preserve the separation of content and style. So let's create a new file in our project. I'll call it style.css. And if you remember, in my index page, I already applied a style here, right, to my header. And one of the attributes, again, I didn't explain this part, I rushed through it. One of the attributes that I can use to control the styling of my elements is color. And in this case, I'm using the color name itself, which is blue. So when I do this, again, we can see that the header is in blue color. So right now, it's not actually, the page is not actually pure HTML, if that makes sense. It is a mix between HTML and CSS, which is this style tag, okay? So the style tag contains what? CSS properties. So in order to separate the concerns, again, and to preserve the purity of HTML away from the CSS, we need to move this attribute somewhere else. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is just cut this color and go to my style page here. You can see it. And in my style page, I will add the following. I will add h1. So h1 is the tag that I'm trying to target with this style. Okay, they call the selector. I will open curly brackets, and within my curly brackets, I will add the color that I moved from there. So what does this exactly say? It's trying to tell the browser that, by the way, if you see a header one tag or element, please apply whatever within these curly brackets to that element. So right now, I'm going I'm going to apply color, and let's add, for example, text decoration. Okay, maybe dashed. Okay, and you can experiment with this really. Okay, there are so many properties for all elements. You can experiment with styles until you see something that works. So right now, my style page lives in the root directory of my project. Okay, so far so good. My index page, in its current shape or in its current state, does not know about my style.css. So when the browser uh, executes my HTML page, okay, it will run it, right? It will go through it line by line. It will say, okay, this is an HTML5 page. The language is English. These are some meta tags, and this is what I'm supposed to render. Okay, and then it will uh, it will end here, right? Because there is actually no reference of the style file that we created. Similar to programming in other languages, if you don't actually reference something, if you don't include, for example, uh, in C++, or you don't require, okay, in JavaScript, or you don't import in Python, all of these commands, if you don't use them, then your program, your compiler basically will not understand uh, that you need additional files in your project. It will just take your file at face value, if that makes sense. So if you want to actually tell the compiler or tell the browser in this case that, by the way, you need the style.css file in order to render this page correctly, then you have to import it. Okay. So I hope this is clear so far. So let's go back to the slides and see how we can import. Uh, Again, I'm not going in order because I feel like this is better for me to explain the actual benefit of using CSS. So far, um, again, we created a style.css file. We told the web browser that all h1 tags, h1 similar to this one, h1, need to have what? Blue color and text decoration of dash. So if I save both files, and I already did, and I go to my web page, refresh, I can see that even though this is header one, I don't have blue color applied to it, nor text decoration flash. So how can I fix that? You'll find in slide 28 piece of code here called link. And this link basically is a way to reference or to link an additional resources, okay? So the resource that I'm trying to link is called style.css. So I can say style.css. And you can call it this way or you can call it this way. I prefer you add the slash and let's save it. Now, if we go back to our web page, we will see that actually header one color change. And let me check the text decoration. I think it's not the text decoration. Um, I believe it was, but maybe it could be just border. So border bottom. Actually, I forgot the CSS type for blue. I'll explain exactly what I'm doing right now very soon, but just give me a second because I'm trying to apply another styling so you can see the effects. Other than color, uh, we can apply, for example, I wanted something visual really. We can apply alignment, but for each one alignment will not work. So let me actually uh, as you can see, we have so many options here. So for each one, I think borders will not work actually. Um, we can use border bottom dot. Yes, okay. So this is what I was trying to apply actually. Dash, yes. So it was border bottom, not text decoration. Again, this is a one way of doing it, actually. One way of doing it. Again, border bottom, dash. Border bottom, dash. Okay. Okay. So as you can see, so what did I do just now? Because I know most of you might be confused. Um, Basically, one way of testing out your code and experimenting, which is what I like the most actually about web design, is that I can just grab any web page that I like. Okay, let's go to um, okay, let's go to this page. Okay, and if I see something that I like on that page, I can basically imitate it. A style that for example, I can see that maybe this is a bad example. This page does not contain that many styles. Let's find another page. For example, go to okay. So you can see, this button looks nice, right? If you want to grab the styling of this button, all you need to do is just right click on it in the browser and click on inspect. Okay. This will show you all the styles that were used to create this button. Okay, and you can actually move your mouse here in order to highlight multiple sections of the page. So for example, if you click on this, it will give you what again? It will highlight the element itself. And from here, you can start playing around with the styles. And if you like the style, for example, I can see that the button actually is mostly styled in this section. Okay, and you can see there are so many styles applied to it. Font size, line height, border. Okay, again, margin. We'll talk about all of these very soon. I just wanted to give you an example of how would you um, experiment with CSS, which is, again, it's very creative process. Really, I think if you give it a try, and you will enjoy it so much because the web is an open canvas. And there are so many websites like CodePen, right? Where you can also see uh, what others are building. Like, for example, this is, I'm not sure what is this actually, but this is an example of what yani, text, ink bleed. Okay, ink bleed. Basically, it's just a normal HTML and with the following styles applied to it. So black, bright white, this is the body, the paper itself, okay, paper, which is, I think, this background. So again, I don't want to branch out. I know I'm branching out too much, but we'll come back to all of these once we're done with the basics. So again, what did we do so far? We created an index page. We added style.css to our root directory. Then we applied to our header one the following styles: border, bottom, dash, color, blue. And then we referenced, and that's the most important step, because the moment I remove this reference, my web page suddenly goes back to normal, right? But the moment I include my reference again, my web page is aware of what is happening in style.css page. Okay, so this is how we use the link element. So, and by doing that, as you can see, my web page is completely focused on content. There is no mention, right, of any styles. And we like to keep it this way. By doing it this way, we actually apply the concept of separation of concerns, where we keep the style away from the structure to keep our HTML clean. So styles, as mentioned, stored in files for easier modification. Okay, simplifies site maintenance, of course, because everything is now can be stored here. So remember, I created another page called about the HTML, right? This, we've done it also in the previous chapter. So all I need to do, if I want to apply the same styling to this page, is to just import the same style sheet there. So I can copy this, go back here, enter, paste. Okay. So how can I navigate to about.html? I can add an anchor link, also another element here, and I can say, please take me to what about.html. Go to about. Okay, and if we go here, click on it, I can see my about header is also having the same style. And if I change the style here, for example, I don't like blue today, I want it to be purple. Okay, suddenly it's changed in about and it's changed in index.html. So it is amazing. I can apply it in one place and have it changed in so many other places. And if I create contact us, another page, okay, and again we apply the same thing, contact us, and I add another header, right? Header one, contact us, and then all I need to do again is link, add a link tag in the header, and reference basically. Uh, which web? and reference again my style.css. And if I go to index, I will do one extra strip here. I'll create nav, and inside my nav, I will actually place a button allow, go to contact us, and then I will add what go to home. So this will be index.html. This will be contact us.html. And what I'm going to do now to maintain this nav, so it will be easier for me to navigate around, right? I will copy it and paste it in all of my pages. So this, I think I forgot the closing tag. Yeah. So essentially, again, what I'm doing is trying to maintain the navigation in all pages so I can jump between pages easily. And if I do this, I should see something similar to this, okay? So go to home, take me home, go to about, go to contact us. And you can switch between them this way. And again, the same styling is being applied everywhere. Beautiful, okay? So this is, again, how we use external style sheet. Again, they call it external style sheet. So what about the other methods? We have two other main methods called inline and embedded. Inline, we've already seen an example of inline. So in contact us, let's actually create a paragraph. And this paragraph, I will apply styling to it. Okay. This styling, I will assign, let's say, what kind of style should we, maybe we should play a little bit with font family. Okay. So font family and font size will allow me to control what kind of font I want to use for that page. Okay. And there are certain kind of fonts that come already built in most operating systems. Okay. And this will differ from Mac to Linux to Windows. You will find different font formats, but most likely Arial, Helvetica, this sans serif, and you'll find these three at least. Monospace also, my favorite. Okay, so let's use actually monospace, and I will say uh, learning HTML and CSS is fun. Okay. And again, this is in contact us page, which is completely unrelevant to what should be available in contact us. Okay. So let's change it to you can find us in the following location. Excellent. And let's add an ordered list, for example, with this item, and we'll call it as, for example, Samia and Hawali. Okay. Again, just trying to make it a little bit related to what this page is all about. So if I go back here and go click on contact us, you can see, and I noticed something very interesting just now. Let me move this here, actually. We'll talk about it now. That the font here is actually different from this font. So this font, I believe, is Arial. So I'll use this trick again. The default font, I believe, is, does not say. It's either sans serif or Arial. Okay. So let's try something. So I will use font family, and let's change it to it's not sans serif because I can see it. Wait, it is changing back to default font. In this case, I believe the is system UI, not system UI also. Honestly, I'm not sure what is the default font in this case, but you can see, it is serif, I think, right? It is serif, not sans serif, it is serif. So this is the default font for me. For you, it might be something else, depending on the operating system you're using. The default font will be different. So the paragraph is having, again, what I would add the comment for, is having embedded style, or inline, sorry, inline, or embedded, both of them are correct, like inline or embedded style. Why do we call it that? Because it's actually baked into the HTML tag itself. The paragraph tag contains a style attribute. This is an attribute of the paragraph tag again, and within it, I specified the font family. This is what we did in the beginning of the lecture, right? We created this kind of format. So this is, again, one way of doing it, and we can apply it again. Like, for example, if I want to apply it to the ordered list, I can use the same method, right? So for paragraph, this is the style. For ordered list, this is the style. I can go back. I can see it is actually monospace. Monospace means that the spacing between my characters is always the same. So if I change it back, if I remove the style, you can see that, like, tell me how many letters? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I will do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So just by chance, both of them are having 7 characters, right? But even though they are both 7 characters, the spacing is not the same. The Y is standing out a little bit. You can see it. It's sticking out. So with monospace, if I use the monospace style, okay, and I go back, you can see it is exactly the same. So H and S, A and A, L and W, M and A, they all have the exact spacing, which is satisfying to look at. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is actually one of the preferred ways of rendering, say, pages with code in them. So if you have any kind of code, most likely you want to use a monospace variant font. Okay, so I believe here, I'm not sure what kind of font I'm using. Font, so the editor font, not font size. I believe if we go to the settings of mm, okay, let's do it the old way. If I go to the settings, and from here look for font, you can see my font family is actually what? Menlo, Monaco, and Monospace. And this is what being used for, again, for my IDE. So you can, for example, if you want to use a different font, you can import it actually, right? And we'll talk about importing external style sheet very soon. But for now, we saw how to use inline. So CSS, again, this is inlines, not embedded, like mixing the two. So this is inline style. So with inline, we are relying again on the style attribute of the, sorry, we are relying on the tag, style tag within the element itself. And we can, if I use div, for example, div, and I give it another style, let's use background color, and let's use aqua, okay? So for div, it's a little bit different. Why? Because for paragraphs, this paragraph tag, for example, it already contains what text within it. This ordered list already contains list items. But if we go back here, even though I created in contact us page a div with this style, it does not show. Why is that? Because div by itself, it's we used this word before, plain tag. Yani it does not have structure. It's just a division. Okay. So if you want to give it a structure, you have to give it width and height. Okay. So if we go here again to the page, you can see, and I will move my mouse down until I reach this part. I can see by default div will take the width of the page by default, but regarding height, it will not have any height. So the default height for the div element is what? 0. So if I want to assign height to it, I can do so by simply saying, going back to the style element and applying what height. And my height will be what? 10 pixels, for example. Okay, we'll talk about the different measurements for height and width later. So 10 pixel, you can see it's exactly what 10 pixel, and now it is visible actually for the page. Okay, so this is what using inline. So what about the third option, embedded? Embedded styles are included within the head section. So here, which is we can say a little bit more organized. So most likely, you'll start your page with inline. Okay, it's a progressive thing. You don't have to jump directly to style.css. You can do it by first experimenting with inline, moving it to embedded. Yeah, and last but not least, what actually importing it using the link tag. Okay, so this is how you progress. You experiment with inline, you enhance with embedded, and last but not least, you actually import with external. Okay. So I like my paragraph. So what I can do is move my paragraph style to an embedded format. And embedded format basically says you have to use a style tag in the head section, and within it, just treat it as a normal style.css page where you specify the tag, open curly brackets, and then you mention the style attribute that you want to apply. So this is exactly identical to what we have in our style.css page. So style, paragraph, font family, monospace. If I go back to my page, I can see it is still applied, okay, to my paragraph here. I refresh with that. Okay. Now if I remove it again, I save, I can see that my paragraph is now back to its original font, which is serif. Okay. So this is how you use embedded. And last but not least, if you like what you did so far and you want to clean or tidy everything up, you can move your paragraph into the style.css page. And now you can see that looks the same. And the beautiful thing is, again, it is already applied to my homepage by default. So if I go to my home page, the index, you'll notice that our paragraph already is styled with monospace, even though I didn't specify it in this page. Why? Because I'm importing the same style sheet page or the same style sheet file in all of my pages. So this is the beauty of using a single style CSS file for our project. The important option, and we'll see if we need to explain it or not because it is a little bit advanced. So far, the only selector that we've used was the um they call it the tag selector. Okay. So what do we mean by selector? And we've been using it all this time, but we never actually specified um, what it is, basically. So this, when we target an element in the page, for example, H1, paragraph, let's say order list, right? Let's use large example. You can see the font size is a little bit bigger. So all of these are called what? Selectors, because you're telling the web page, whenever you see one of these elements, whenever you are processing the page and you stumble upon one of these elements, for example, paragraph, please go to my style page, take this style and apply it here. This is actually what's happening, okay, behind the scenes. Yeah. It's going to the style.css, grabbing whatever styles there that are matching the selector and applying them to the elements I have in my page. Okay, so far so good. So is this the only way to do it? Yani, what if I want some of my paragraphs to be in blue? This is where in contact us. You can find us on the following locations. Let's also make it a little bit sensible. I create another paragraph and we'll say our working hours are from say 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Okay. So you can see that, and so we can distinguish between both. I'll apply color. Let's use not yellow, not blue. Not sure what color to use actually. Okay, let's use brown. Okay. So if I go back here, I can see that my paragraphs are all in brown colors. But what if I want some of my paragraphs to be in brown and some to be, let's say, in yellow? Okay. This way, this selector will not work because this selector is too broad. Okay, it is applying to all paragraphs. So what kind of selector can we use in this case? Okay, we already used the HTML element or the HTML tag selector, which is this one. We have two other options, the class selector and the ID selector. Okay, and we'll go through them one by one right now. So we already spoke about this. We covered background color. We kind of skipped over the color in CSS. We'll come back to it very soon, okay? But let's actually talk about the class and ID selectors. So in order to distinguish between these two paragraphs, all I need to do is use something called class. Okay, class by itself, think of it as a tag. Okay, how do you, for example, whenever you're organizing your documents, you usually maybe place a tag on them, right? So for the blue tag, maybe these pages mean they are related to the project timeline. And for pages tagged with green tag, maybe they are related to the budget. project budget, and so on and so forth. Okay. So using tagging is a way to differentiate between things that are from from afar, they are supposed to be the same. So this is a paragraph and this is a paragraph. How can I distinguish between these two paragraphs? Is by using this tag. Okay. And in this case, in HTML, they call it class. So what kind of class can I use for paragraph? Anything. You can name it whatever you want. Again, when you tag things, you give meaning to it. In this case, I would call it maybe a text, blue dash text. This is my tag name. And for this paragraph, I'll give the class and I will call it brown text. So as you can see, the class name is descriptive, okay? Blue text, brown text. So all I need to do now is copy this class name, go to my style.css, and I will delete actually this paragraph selector. And I will use dot and then blue text. So this is acting as a reference to this class, blue text, okay? And here I will use the color what, since it says blue, I will use the color blue. And I don't care about font family for now. I will save it. So right now we applied it to which paragraph? The first paragraph, okay? So if we go back to our page, we can see that our first paragraph actually is now in blue color, okay? We can repeat the same for our second paragraph. I will use brown text and I will use the color brown and I will save it. Go back here and as you can see now I have two paragraphs, one in blue and one in brown. And you can repeat this as many times as you want. So for example, if I want to create another, I'll call it yellow text and give it a color of again yellow. And actually let's use a different format for color because this is actually something we need to learn. So far we've been using color names, okay? So brown, blue, yellow, black, but there's actually another way of using colors, which is called RGB. So what is RGB? RGB is red, green, and blue. Red, green, and blue. So if I, because as you know, that all colors stem out of a mixture of these three colors, basically, right? If I mix red with green with blue in different quantities, I will be able to basically create any color available. So in this case, what we can do is use a different mixture of these three. Again, because I can't remember really the way they do it. For each, they do it this way actually. So our colors, I think, on a spectrum of 0 to 255. Okay. So as you can see right now, I'm in the inspector. I just picked one of my elements. I inspected that element. Okay. And I clicked on the color itself. And once I clicked on the color itself, now I can move around, okay, until I find the color that I want to apply. And you can see all my colors, the red, the green, and blue, are on a spectrum from 0 to 255. If I mix red, green, and blue with 255, 255, 255, I will get white. But if I mix them all in 0 quantities, I will get black. Okay? color here. So if I want to know the red, green, and blue mixture for this color, okay, I believe it's what line. So if I click on it, I will get the hexadecimal representation of that color and the RGB what mix. So 205, 220, 57. I'll go here, 205, 220, and what? 57. And I can see the color reflected here. If I save, I go back, I refresh the page. Where did we apply it actually? Ah, to yellow text. Do we have actually anything with yellow text? We don't. So let's change it. Instead of yellow text, yellow background. Okay, it will be more sensible. And I will go back here. If you remember my div down, I will delete all of this and I will use the class yellow background, and I will create another class height 10. Okay, I'll go to my style.css, add it here, height 10, and from the name you can guess that it will apply height of 10 pixels. So what did I do just now? I actually use multiple classes to style my element. And this way, what you can keep on creating a mixture of styles in order to come up with the perfect, basically perfect style for your elements. So yellow background, height 10, maybe you'll add another style. We can say borders, okay, border, let's say not black, okay, let's use border black. I'll create another CSS tag, border black. So border border black, and I believe I can use dotted this way. Okay, so you can see my element now. Supposedly it should have a yellow background, a height of 10, and a border of black. So let's review the styles. Yellow background. I'm still using color actually. We need to change it to background color. Height of 10 and border black. If I go back, I can see that the three styles are applied beautifully to my div element. Okay, so this is how you can mix and match your classes. Perfect. Okay, so we already, let's get back to our slides here. We already used background color, we used multiple classes, we used RGB. There is another way of applying colors, which is hexadecimal. Okay, so you can see in slide 8, we already used RGB format. We also have hexadecimal format. So in hexadecimal, what we can go back here, and if you want to know the hexadecimal representation of this color, you can just, again, I'm using the inspector. You can just click here and click on this two arrows next to the RGBA boxes, and you can see the representation. There are many ways of representing colors. Usually RGB and hexadecimal are just enough. RGB or RGBA. So what does the A stands for? It stands for transparency. Okay. So if you play around with this, you can make it more transparent. Okay. And that's why you need the last element. Now, if you use RGB only, then it will assume that you don't want it to be transparent at all. But if you use RGBA, that means maybe you're planning to change the transparency of the element, and you can see it's going from deep yellow to light yellow. شفافية. Okay, nice. So again, if you want to get the hexadecimal representation, hexadecimal, again, from the name, it's just a hexadecimal code that represent the color that you want to use. And this is actually one of the ways you can apply colors to elements. If I refresh the page, you can see the color is still applied. So use whatever you want, really. All of them are correct. All of them will have their own use cases. For me, I prefer to use the hexadecimal because it's compact. It's just one line, you know, shorter to write. Sometimes, of course, you cannot memorize hexadecimal. But if you want to have more control, you can use, again, RGB and use like a mixture of colors. Okay. And if you specify RGBA, you need to specify the transparency. Okay. Otherwise, if you remove transparency, then it's better to use RGB. So this is, for example, I don't know what color will appear. Okay, so 12, 25, 255, 44 is actually blue, green somehow. Yeah. And again, like you can experiment with these colors and these formats however you want using the inspect window. Usually the inspect window, when you open it the first time, it will be, I believe, aligned this way. Okay. So if you want to view it in a different way, you can change the alignment from here also. And again, I'm using what Google Chrome as my browser. We're done with all of these. We already used inline, embedded, and external. Imported, we don't care about it that much. This is an example of inline. And again, inline, we can say it's not recommended if you want reusability. Embedded is a little bit better. Okay. It's easier to maintain, a little bit more reusable, but again, inefficient for larger scale projects. Last but not least, we use the imported. Okay. And in imported, we, or external, sorry, we actually used a style sheet from a different file. Okay. So let's wrap up by talking a little bit about the order of precedence. So when we're talking about CSS, it's called cascade for a reason, right? Cascade style sheet means that there is a way for it to apply cascading in a cascading way. So if you mix all styles, the browser will prefer to apply inline first, embedded second, and external last. So what do we mean exactly by this? If we go back to our page, now we have yellow background, right, applied to our div here. But if I go here and I say, by the way, the selector, the class selector yellow background is actually this kind of yellow background color. I'll not use yellow. Let's change it to maybe, okay, so it's at least let's try to make it, okay, let's use this yellow for now. Okay, let's change it to, I know it doesn't make sense, but let's change it to red so we can prove our point. So what do you think will happen right now? I have yellow background style with this color applied. But then in contact us page, I'm adding another style called yellow background also. So the same class name I'm using, but with a different background color. So in this case, the browser will prefer to use this one actually. Okay, so if we go back to our page, you'll see it is actually not yellow, it is red. So what if I go a step further? Okay, and you can see the cascading. Cascade means it is like layers on top of layers, cascading. Okay, so the last step, what if I go to again to my div, as you can see with the yellow background here, and I say style background color aqua, and I save it. I will go back here and I can see aqua is actually being applied. And if I go here to my inspect window, I will see something very interesting. First, I can see that yellow background is actually being imported, but it's being what? Crossed out. Then I can see yellow background again. It's being used in contact us.html. So it's being imported from style first, but then it's being crossed out. But then it's being imported in contact us page, but then it's being crossed out again, right? And then within the element itself, element.style, I can see it being applied finally as aqua. If I disable the element style, it will go back to red. And if I disable the embedded style, it will go back to the external style, which is the actual yellow color that I wanted. Okay. If I toggle this back, toggle this back. So this is what we mean by cascading. Okay. So we covered this, which was a very important concept. Let's talk, last but not least, about the other selector, which is the ID selector. Okay, and I think it's enough. There's no need to go through the dissident selector. This is something we can cover up in next chapters. We have time. So the last selector that we can use is the ID selector. So what's the difference actually between using the class selector and the ID selector? The class selector, just simply put, can be used on multiple elements. So you can see yellow background. I can have multiple elements with yellow background. Okay, I can change this, and I can change this class, yellow background, yellow background. So my paragraph, my ordered list, and my div should now all be on. Okay, let's actually change this, remove the style. All of them should have what? Yellow backgrounds, except for this, because we have embedded, we have inline style. Okay, so yellow background here, yellow background here, yellow background here, which is again an amazing way to reuse the same style without that much effort. I can work hard on creating my style here. Okay, I can even add font family, for example, mono, and maybe text border. We use the text decoration for border bottom. Let's see, dotted one when here, for example. Okay, it's too much, but anyway. And this is what I mean by reusability. I mean, it's easily applicable to all elements. All I need to do is just use this yellow background. This yellow background tag, right? So what about the ID selector? ID selector works basically the same way, but there you can use the ID in a unique way. You cannot repeat the same ID again. From the name, ID means identifier. So if you want to create an ID selector, you need to indicate it with hash or pound or whatever you want to call it. So hash, and then I will call it main header. And you can see the color is different. And then in main header, I will apply font family. Let's use a different font. Let's say Helvetica. Okay. One of my favorite fonts also. And I will use font size 30 pixel. Okay, and I will use fonts color. Let's use this one, chocolate, whatever. Okay, so this looks a little bit different with dots. So if you use dot and then the tag name, this is a class selector. But if you use hash, then this is an ID selector. So how can we use the ID selector? We go back to our page, contact us, heading one, right? Right now, heading one is in, I believe, in which color is this? Purple, right? So let's remove purple, actually. Let's remove header one altogether and go back here. And I can see that contact us again, it's in black. All I need to do is just use ID equals main header. Okay. So with class, and you can only include one ID. So you cannot use, for example, main header and blue text. It does not work. That's the main difference. ID is supposed to be unique across the entire page. So ID, you cannot use also main header here. There can only be one main header ID in the page. Okay. So you cannot reuse it. So ID main header, if I save the page and go back here, I can see contact us now. It's in Helvetica and in chocolate color. Okay. So of course, each have their own use cases. For example, ID mainly is or will be utilized in the script tag later on. Once we go to the script tag, you'll learn more about it. But for now, just know that ID is unique to the page. You cannot repeat ID in multiple sections, while class is repeatable. Okay, and class is the preferred way actually of applying styles. Okay, class again is the preferred way of applying styles. ID and you rarely use, but you can still use it. There is a use case for everything. Okay, it's all about knowing when to use these features. Okay, so this is it for this chapter. I believe we covered everything. Okay, and see you in the next chapter.